We had a mystery on our hands this week. The scholars in this room are the crew of a mighty ship, the Envisioneer. While in search of an ancient treasure, we were marooned on an island, and a key part of our navigational map went missing. Of the entire crew, we considered 4 suspects. Today you will hear the evidence collected against Dr. Smart and Robert Neff.
When the Envisioneer crashed, there was falling debris everywhere, which injured a lot of passengers on the ship. Our job was to put splints on their injured limbs. To help the Envisioneer's injuries, we all had to put casts on others. One of the places we put a cast on was the neck. We all learned how to put it on safe and secure. Our group watched a few videos on it, then we tried putting the casts on our peers. We learned how to neatly put the wrap around our cast. Lastly, we learned substitutes for the cast for if we were ever in a place where we were somewhere, someone was hurt and we didn't have a medical clinic or medical supplies with us.
An important tool in emergency situations. Say someone breaks an arm. It will not heal right if you don't put a cast on it. We were taught at Pathways to STEM how to make casts out of sugar tong or SAM. First, you measure the cast and bend it around the end so it fits tight. Then, you shape the cast around the arm into a C shape that fits around nicely. Then wrap it with ACE bandages. Keep it on snug. Now we can use casts to save our comrades and family.
This is what a healthy lung looks like. This is a model I made of the lung. The balloon inside the cup is the lung. The balloon at the bottom is the diaphragm, and the straw is what makes the air come in and out of the lungs. A collapsed lung looks like a regular lung, but there's a hole in it and air escapes through that hole. To treat a collapsed lung, you would have to put a tube in between the ribs. If the tube doesn't work, then that person would have to go into surgery. I did the lung because that's what makes you breathe and one of the things that helps you live. We needed to learn about the lung so we could help the passengers that had breathing problems so we could heal and help them.
Today we are going to teach you robotics and engineering. You will be learning how to build and program MBOTs to find missing passengers on the island. You will also learn about motors on an amusement park ride and a bridge for the MBOTs to drive across because part of the path was ruined from the storm and only a robot can get to this part of the island because it isn't safe for humans.
As part of our engineering subject, we built MBOTs. We used the bots to find the missing sailors and to get to places unreachable from the crew of the Envisioneer on the island.
Hi, we built amusement park rides as well. We used motors to make them move. The motors were made out of an electrical circuit. We would connect the black wires to the motor and the red wires to the switch. The switch had one red wire and one black wire. We attached one to the motor, the black to the motor, and the red to the battery. The battery had one red wire, one black wire. We attached the red wire to the switch's red wire, and we attached the black wire to the motor. Then we hid the motor some way, and on top of the part that spins, we put the part of the amusement park ride that would spin. Now I'm going to talk about bridges. We built bridges for MBOTs. We are going to talk about them in a minute. The bridges were used so we could get them across a river. We would see if the bridges, we used paper clips and straws to make the bridges. We would see if the MBOTs could go across it and if they were too heavy to go across it. We were trying to make it sturdy and so it wouldn't fall down.
So today you learned about the path we took to save the people stranded on the island and how we built the bridges and amusement park rides.
Hello friends, we will now talk about snake bites and cow huts. The cow hut was interesting because it was almost the same size as the human hut, and you could learn about human and cow huts by dissecting cow huts.
Snake bites. Snake bites are interesting because we learned that different toxins affect different parts of the body. For example, neurotoxin venom affects the nervous system, causing paralysis, which is the movement when you can't move your muscles in your body, causing you to stay still. Then there's hemotoxin venom that affects the blood, and when it affects it, the blood can clot, creating seizures or heart attacks.
First they thought that Sydney Young was being delusional about her saying she was kidnapped, but after they listened to her description of the snake, they found out she was telling the truth. In the story, first mate Sydney Young was bitten by a king cobra. So we learned what different types of snake venom does to your blood and what not to do when bitten by a snake. And in the story, a deckhand was experiencing symptoms of the cardiovascular system, and that is why we dissected the cow heart to learn about it. And now to blood drops. This week in CSI, we learned about blood drops and blood analysis. In CSI blood drops, we drop blood from different heights, 12 inches, 30 inches, and 66 inches. We analyzed the blood drops by size to see which drops were bigger. This is one of the examples of the blood drop.
We found that the higher the drop, the more the splatter you would get. When we dropped from 12 inches, we got a small splatter. From 30 inches, we got a medium splatter. And for 66 inches, we got the biggest splatter. But some people got a bigger splatters than others. Like someone's 60 was smaller than mine, and their 12 was bigger.
After realizing that the blood splatters more the higher up it is dropped from, we concluded that the blood found at the scene fell from 30 inches. This evidence pointed to Dr. Nicholas Smart, who had a cut on his hand, but in the end we realized it was blood from the shipwright Neff, who had kneeled down when a cut from his head had bled onto the scene. This is one of the key parts of evidence that we found at the scene that helped us point to the conspiracy.
For the CSI part of the program, we noticed white powder on the in the ship's kitchen. For our experiment, we tested different powders to see which one matched up. We mixed cornstarch, powdered sugar, cream of tartar, and baking soda with iodine, water, and vinegar. After analyzing, we figured out that the powder was cornstarch.
We found the mixture of cornstarch and water creates a recipe that heals skin. We realized that the person using it must have had a skin irritation, and that gave us a big hint. At first, we suspected Dr. Smart because he knows most about that stuff. It started to get confusing until we looked closer and saw fingerprints on the cup that the mixture was in.
We needed to come up with a powder that would help us find the prints. After discussing, we came up with cocoa powder because it was most like the powder real detectives use. We carefully sprinkled cocoa on the cup and brushed it off with our special tool. Once they were visible, we lined them up to the suspects and decided that the fingerprints belonged to shipwright Robert
Based
Neff.
on all the evidence our STEM group has submitted, we believe that Dr. Smart and shipwright Neff are guilty of stealing an ancient map.
Guilty!